one and see what they're selling.
Yep.
It's just ridiculous. They're going to have to come up with something that gives you a little bit better management, I guess, of it. Hey, Josh, I guess we're live, so.
I was just about to talk about my Bradley Beal low serial number. Come on.
Keep going. I said I'm hitting live. We can still keep talking about Top Shot.
No, it's not that interesting.
We're not Pete Overset. We don't get to just keep talking Top Shot whenever we want.
Why the hell not? All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 69 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm here with my main man, Bill at Super Duper Flex. Bill, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Excited to have these three gents with us. Three of my favorite people in the business. And, I always look forward to nights like this.
I agree. If you're listening to this in podcast form, obviously you don't know what we're talking about. Usually we might have one guest. Sometimes we spice it up and bring two, but these three guys are so great at what they do. We need to have them all on at once. We have the entire crew from the Dynasty Theory podcast, Mitch, Coach Dan, and JB. How you fellas doing?
Fantastic.
Doing well. Excited for this.
It's a good-looking group tonight.
I feel like we got the whole family together. Like we've mixed and matched and past podcasts together, but I think this is the first time it's been all five of us, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So this is exciting. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I know it's one of Bill's favorite podcasts. So anytime we can get these guys on, we throw them on and we chop it up. So on that note, let's hit the news. So Texans signed David Johnson to a 1-year contract after they cut Duke Johnson. So I guess it'll be David Johnson and whoever they take with their first pick in the third round. What do you guys dynasty-wise think about this David Johnson with the Texans? Whoever wants to go first.
So I'll jump on that one real quick because this is what I've been telling everybody is hold him until August. If you have him on your team, hold him until August. And I don't care what your team looks like. If you need a running back, you still trade him. You trade him. There is going to be a running back needy team somewhere who's going to be willing to trade for him. That is going to be your only point for the rest of his career to get anything out of him. So that is just the sell for me. I will figure out my running back spot somewhere else. But he is one to where I'm just going to hold till August, then I'll move him after that.
He's even somebody in early offseason startups, the point he's been slipping. Even if it doesn't matter how your roster is constructed, you're going to get that value from him, just like Mitch said. And Mitch and I, we clash on a lot of our takes and thoughts, but this is one that he has been preaching. I mean, he brought it up, I think, immediately after the season ended. And here we are. They restructured his deal, right? Is that what they did? Was it a restructure or, well, anyway, so I think, and like Josh said, they're probably going to bring somebody else in because of the Duke Johnson release, but David Johnson, he's still going to have some type of value. Just like Mitch said, get him out there once the season rolls around. But I'm not actively looking to pick him up in an existing league. There's no reason for that at this point.
Yeah, I'm curious what that some kind of value is going to be. And you mentioned the word slipping, JB. He's going to have to take like a nosedive to land on any of my rosters. I have 0 David Johnson shares. I plan on acquiring 0 David Johnson shares unless he did just like literally fell in my lap. That would be the only way. But the Houston Texans, as we know, they are my top most dysfunctional team out there. And I think by time the season rolls around, like I currently have some Watson and Fuller shares, and they'll probably stay on my rosters, but they won't be Houston Texans. So I could almost confidently say I may have 0 Houston Texans on my roster this year. And I just think when you look at David Johnson, if Watson's out of there and Fuller's out of there, they're probably putting 8 in the box. And he didn't do much last year with Deshaun Watson as his quarterback. He flashed a little bit at the end, but for Dynasty, I'm greatly concerned. And I'm even more worried now about my boy Tua, who I was starting to get on a little bandwagon for. But if he gets swapped over there by any chance to Houston, I'm getting a little nervous, gentlemen.
Really quick, Dan. He went right before the 308 in a startup. That's pretty low. And I'm confident that you could probably flip him for more than, not much more, but more than that come time the season rolls around.
Yeah, if I could get a third for David Johnson, that'd be great. My notes here said, unless he falls on my lap, like for a fourth rounder and like a player I would cut, no thanks.
Yeah, I think that the max you get is like a late second once you get into the like right before the season, or maybe if he pops, like week 1. Like, so, I mean, I guess if you're able to get him in a startup in that range, late third, it might be worth just the chance. And if you're expecting to have a decent team, you're not, throwing in the towel for year 1 in a startup, then maybe it's worth adding him just to see what happens. But it's totally a flyer at this point. I'm not sure. Like, I'm very much like you, Dan. I don't want, and I'm not looking, well, pretty much everybody, right? Not looking to add them to your rosters. But it is interesting that they did, make sure that they, that he's sticking around for the year, and they did get rid of Duke. So, I mean, there's some interesting things. I mean, they obviously have to add somebody else. I mean, there's just no way around that. I mean, it's not like he's going to be a bell cow. A lot of times this time of year, everybody gets super excited. And we'll get to this a little bit later about players when somebody gets cut. And I think that, people overweight those moves. And so this might even not be a bad time to try to move him, because there might be at least some value at this point.
Mitch, is it buy Duke Johnson season again? I feel like it comes up every time.
No, I did that 2 years ago, and I'll never live it down.
Thank you for that first.
Yeah.
Bill got one of them.
I vetoed that trade. Mitch
You
and I
did.
were co-managers, and I told Mitch I don't want to do it, and we sent a first. And I think Duke had like 13 touches that season.
It was a good idea at the time. I don't care what you say.
No, it wasn't.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, and Bill, you bring up an interesting point, because we hear the news, whether it's contract extension or trade or cut or whatever, and people get excited. I mean, we'll talk about this later on, but, Kyle Rudolph got cut, and now like Irv Smith is like tight end 3, and, we're all, but this David Johnson thing, it almost seemed like, even on Twitter, it was just, nobody talked about it. Everybody was like, it's David Johnson, whatever. We don't care. We've been down this road before. So it'll be really interesting to see what, if anything, you can get for David Johnson now. And then, like Mitch was mentioning, maybe waiting until August, or maybe even week 1, if he has 50 yards rushing and like 8 catches for like 70 yards and maybe a touchdown. It's like, oh, he got all these yards and all these catches. It'll be interesting to see, because this seems like the one move that no one has talked about. And I mean, I think it's for good reason, but
Yep.
it'll be fun to see what happens in the David Johnson market.
One thing really quick, I know it's easy to say like, oh, I would move David Johnson for a late second, like Bill brought up, or I just mentioned that he went right before 308, but maybe something that you would look to do in a league that, you're a year or 2 in, if there is a team that's built to contend and you have David Johnson on your roster and you're not going to be contending, and like Mitch said, look to move him when the season rolls around, but maybe at this point in time, see if you could package David Johnson with a third and move up in the second or something like that. Nothing drastic, but it at least gives you an opportunity to cash out on David Johnson here. Maybe somebody does believe, oh, Duke Johnson getting cut, David Johnson, it's his time to really shine. If you can find that one person in the league, it might be a good idea.
Would you move him for AGG? Like,
Sure.
that's almost like the point of like where I'm trying to think of like what kind of like young player would you have to get, and then, like, nobody responded yes or no there, so I kind of
I would actually keep David Johnson there. I think I would rather just have the points on the field at that point.
Wait, I honestly thought you said AJG as in AJ Green.
Oh no, yeah, I'm
But you
sorry.
still had to think about
Antonio Gandy Golden. Yeah, so
That's
yeah.
what I heard. No, I'll take David Johnson over Gandy Golden.
I think that's my point. Like, Gandy Golden to me is the equivalent of like a fourth.
Right.
Like like for, if I have a contending roster and you're offering me David Johnson, I'd rather keep my third. I would give you my fourth and some guy I'm going to cut like Gandy Golden.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where we're at. It's somewhere in that range, at least, right?
Josh, I was just going to say that, man.
How the mighty, I mean, it was what, 2-3 years ago? This was like the 101, and we were like, this guy runs, this guy catches, he blocks, he does everything. We love him. And now it's like, hey, how about Antonio Gandy Golden? It's like, what?
But he still has more value than Todd Gurley. I was looking at the startup we're in. Todd Gurley's still going behind him. And you talk about a fall from grace. Holy cow.
Yeah, man. Another guy that just I remember I'm in a startup that started exactly 3 years ago, and he was the 101 in a 16-team Superflex, and he was the 101 3 years ago, and
that's
now
gonna be painful.
Now we're like, Todd Gurley. What are we in the 18th round? All right, yeah. Let's queue him up. Let's go, and it's crazy.
I bet Andrew Luck was right around there too.
Oh.
Wait, I have to remind John.
This has nothing to do with David Johnson or Todd Gurley, but Andrew Luck, it was this happened in a few situations, but one 14-team Superflex league. I traded up to get him, I believe it was 9th or 10th overall. A week later, he retired. And it was just, I'm still recovering. It's rough.
Yeah, it's devastating.
That's crazy. And then obviously I mentioned it earlier, the next bit of news, Kyle Rudolph was waived by the Vikings. Is there a spot that you guys can think of, and the answer can be no, that you're like, hey, Kyle Rudolph, like, all right, like let me try to get him on my team. Is there any spot that you guys can think of?
I think there's only one for me, but I'll let you guys say no before I say it.
So for fantasy purposes, I think the answer is no, but the report came out and it makes so much sense that he would be interested in Cleveland. And again, not for fantasy purposes, but you have Stefanski there who came over, and it's like a situation. I mean, they have 15 tight ends that everybody loves, especially Austin Hooper. You have the Hooper scooper over here, but I think that makes sense. But yeah, fantasy wise, I'm out.
I think you have to define impact too. I think overall I'm with John, but I mean, there could be some moderate value depending on where he goes. We don't know who's going to offer him so much money. If he goes someplace like New Orleans, who just let go of Cook. I know we all like Troutman, but maybe Troutman's not as ready as we maybe think he is. And then he goes there and he could score some touchdowns in a tight end premium league. Again, not excited about Rudolph. I'm not going out trying to trade him, but he could be a guy that's okay on your roster in a tight end premium league if he lands in the right spot.
I think the only spot, I'm going to try to guess it, Bill. Is it the Bengals? Because that's like the only spot I could think of to where they really, really need a tight end, and anyone there will kind of hold value.
Patriots, Jaguars.
I was thinking Indy.
What about the Chargers?
I mean, that's not a bad one either. I think it's got to be a place that's going to utilize, like, because he is an okay blocker too, like that. It needs to kind of be a team I consider a running team a little bit, and so that was at least kind of why I was leaning Indy, especially because I think all their tight ends are like free agents at the moment, I believe, or at least restricted.
Yeah,
I know Mo Alley Cox is restricted. We just talked about him not long ago.
And I think Burton and Doyle are free agents.
So I mean, that was just one that I thought, but
it's 6 teams right out of the gate there that potentially could throw the ball to a tight end and give
Dan,
them,
what about the Cowboys?
not a chance.
Yeah,
whatever.
Stop that,
like,
JB.
what's the expectation?
They're full,
though?
JB.
Like, even if he plays somewhere, it's going to be like a tight end 2, right? Like or like 13 to 24. So
I think that's even over ambitious, but
Depends where he goes.
You're probably right.
Like I'm
this
worried
is where we are with the offseason, that these David Johnson and Kyle Rudolph are the breaking news guys to talk about.
I mean, that's
Deep
all we got, man.
analysis on the fantasy timeline.
We can't get a Stafford for Goff trade every week. Sometimes
I know.
this is what you get. So, all right.
Hey, wait, one last thought on Rudolph. It's maybe less exciting of obtaining him where he goes, but whose value could he impact? Like, let's just say he went to New England. If you still like, Asi over there, now does that kind of devalue him for a while? Or, so he could impact someone else's touches and volume and drop someone in our rankings.
Yeah, it's a good call.
He could go to Seattle and completely sour us on DK and Tyler Lockett.
I don't think that's what he does.
Hey, JB likes Will Dissly, man. It could ruin JB's Will Dissly shares there. So.
For his price, I love Will Dissly.
I agree.
So you don't want Rudolph to go to Seattle then, right, JB?
Right. I mean,
too worried, but
no, not too worried. But I don't want anybody to go to Seattle because anybody. I mean, even though he dealt with injuries a little bit, I mean, Greg Olson kept Will Dissly off the field at times, so I don't want anybody going there.
All right, that was a good talk. I know the news wasn't the most groundbreaking and earth-shattering, but we made it through, and I think we highlighted some good points.
Hey, in deeper leagues, though, there's still guys that we've seen how thin rosters can get, and when times get desperate, those are the types of players we're looking at in deep leagues.
And hey, Rudolph is still on our board in a startup that Mitch and John and I are still in. So if anyone's,
what round?
taking notes here,
We're
like currently
18th, 19th.
18th.
Yeah.
Pushing the 19th.
Sounds like a good time to take Kyle Rudolph if you're in that league with these three guys. Take them before they get them.
Hey, and JB and Mitch are up in 2 picks, which probably won't be until
Perfect.
tomorrow at the pace of this draft, but they are up in a couple picks.
All right, cool. So we made our way through that. We're going to go to what we saw on the timeline, which is what we're best at here. So this first one, I think you guys may know this person. This is Linda, and I hope I say this right because she'll get me on Twitter. Lindelians.
That's it.
All right, perfect. Good. She won't make fun of me tomorrow.
She'll make fun of all of us.
Well, yeah, but not for that. I mean, I can take all the other stuff. This one is, who is a player that consensus seems to be much higher on than you are? For me, it's DK Metcalf, which is actually a really good one. Bill, why don't you start us off? Who's your guy?
So I'm kind of going a little bit a rookie entering in the draft, Kyle Pitts. So the reason is everybody is so high on him. And how many first round tight ends end up making it? So I went back, looked to 2006 forward. 2006 was Vernon Davis. He didn't start out amazing, but he ended up having a really solid career. He did quite well for a while. Then the next year was Greg Olson, who didn't start out well and then ended up having a good career. So how long do you have to wait for them to hit? Then there was 11 other first-round picks for a tight end. And really the top names were Ebron, O.J. Howard, Njoku, Evan Ingram. And then we get to Hockenson and Fant. I'll give them TBDs at this point, but there's not a lot of people that I could consider being, a home run for first round tight ends. And that's pretty much where Pitts is going. I know he has other skill sets that maybe they didn't, and he's pretty much just a receiver, but that was kind of Fant as well. And so I guess I'm just a little more hesitant. I'm not anti-Pitts, but I'm just not going. I'm not the bug flying towards the light. You know what I mean? It's just I'm kind of a little hesitant to go after him.
Bill, how early would you take him in one of the safe leagues where it's the 2 PPR?
Yeah, that's a little different. That's somebody I would probably shoot for a little earlier, but that's because of the scoring. It's not necessarily just because of him. We see it so often where that you have to wait 2-3 years. By that time, you've already given up on the guy, or you have to let him sit and wait. You're wasting a roster spot on the player. And those are the kind of things that I'm starting to learn more and more that those roster spots are so important. And to be able to kind of be paralyzed in that one spot for years. It's really difficult. And so, and you just don't know, like it might be 3 years down the road and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I have an Eric Ebron and I'm stuck with a guy I'm not even sure I'm going to start. So I guess, of course, with that type of scoring, I'm more apt to grab him earlier, but otherwise I think people are going to draft him before I would.
I think these are real good players to start with, Metcalf and Pitts here, because I mean they are just specimen of athletes. Definitely those attractive shiny toys that we all love on our dynasty rosters. And as the Pitts hype has kind of escalated, I went back to look at our recent startup because I'm thinking, man, should I have taken him? I'm starting to drink a little bit of that Kool-Aid too. And he went 405 in our startup tight end premium, to super flex. And I took Chubb at 401. And I'm thinking I couldn't take Pitts in front of Chubb. Henry went before him. Nuke went before him. But then Pitts was taken before guys like Allaire, Miles Sanders, Hawkinson, and DN. So CeeDee Lamb.
But yeah, Bill, I agree with you. I don't think I'm going to have much Pitts just because, and I like him. I like him plenty, but almost exactly like you said, there's just always going to be somebody that takes him before me. In our tiered rankings, I have him right at 110, and most likely that's not going to get the job done. And that is in typical PPR. So of course you get up to 1.5, 175, and 2 PPR for tight ends. It's going to be adjusted a little bit, but the way people are talking, and there's some big names out there that are really pumping him up that have followings. There's no way I'm going to get Pitts at 110.
Yeah, and Pitts is one of the rare guys that Dynasty Twitter and Draft Twitter agree on. Like, it doesn't matter who you talk to. Like, Kyle Pitts is Travis Kelce. Like, right now, it's not even like, give him 2 years and he's going to get there. It's like day one, he's going to step out onto the field. I know Mel Kiper just did a mock and he had Pitts going 4. It's like, it's crazy out there with the Pitts love right now.
And he may hit, right? Like, and I'm okay with that. Like, that's the thing. Like, I'm just not willing to take that risk as early as other people are. And, I guess that's just my biggest thing is like tight ends are just such a difficult, like third rounder, Andrews, right? Like, I mean, you're hitting on guys, 5th rounder, Kittle, tight end is so not the same as like wide receivers and running backs or quarterbacks, like the draft capital is so much less important for that position.
So really quick, that's funny that you brought that up. This is like 2 years ago now. Peter Howard put something out, and it was the hit rates in the draft capital for every position, and quarterback, running back, wide receiver, 1st, 2nd, 3rd round. Obviously, it really had a big difference over 4th, 5th, 6th round and 7th round. But tight end, he found that it wasn't so much draft capital as it was the actual pick in the round that had more bearing. So if you're a tight end that's going to a better team later in the round, you had a better hit rate. And I don't know how significant it was. It might have just been, a general observation, but that's what he found. I thought that was really interesting.
That is
interesting. All right, Mitch, we'll go with you next. Who's your guy?
So it's Justin Jefferson. So I have my top 3 wide receivers. I don't care what order they're in. It's Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and DK Metcalf. And it's because those 3 can do things that other players can't do on the field. Like Adams has the best release of anybody. You have Tyreek Hill. Everybody wants to call other players the budget Tyreek Hill because he just does things that no one else does. And then you look at Metcalf. I mean, Metcalf is hopefully slowly going to keep getting better in his skills and somehow turn into like a close version of Julio, right? That's in his expectations could happen. But when I look at Justin Jefferson, and I know he had 1,400 yards as a rookie, he had an amazing rookie year, but I don't know if he is any better than DJ Moore. I don't know if you flip him and DJ Moore, put him on the different teams. Jefferson is there with Bridgewater, and then you put DJ Moore up there with Cousins. I think DJ Moore has a similar season than what we saw with Jefferson. And so just the huge range that we're seeing between those two, because Jefferson's being called the wide receiver one by a lot of people. And DJ Moore is probably in the top 12, but he's really at the low end of that. That's someone you're getting in the 5th round now, to where Jefferson, I mean, everybody loves him, so he's going in the 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, I think there's like a huge tier, right? Like of these young wide receivers that you could pretty much just, reach into the hat, pull one out, and you're not necessarily sure which one's gonna end up better than the other. And so, yeah, I mean, I can buy that pretty much. Especially just the way that the offenses are now. I mean, it's just like when things change each year, who's going to be the one that commands those targets? And, like you said, the ones that you named have something special on that's, bring something special, something different. And as much as I like Justin Jefferson, I can't tell you this is what he does better than everybody else.
Right. And sorry, just one more thing, John, is like, look at Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin was one of those top 5 wide receivers. He has not a bad year, but just an okay year. Now, all of a sudden, you could get him in the 5th or 6th round of drafts. And so wide receivers are just, if they don't have a good year, they fall. I mean, Michael Thomas was the wide receiver 1 going into Dynasty. And now you could get him in the 5th round of every single draft.
I'll jump in with mine just because, well, you'll find out here in a second. For me, there's 3 guys. It's DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, and AJ Brown. And again, just like Mitch said, I love Justin Jefferson. I love AJ Brown and DK Metcalf. Nobody's questioning their talent or their, I'm not even questioning if you want to call them the wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 overall. Fine, great. But for me, when you look at wide receivers, it's the opportunity cost to acquire players like that in the draft. Would I much rather have, and I didn't even have my notes with Mitch's, but I could have just copied his basically. Would I rather have a DJ Moore or Chris Godwin several rounds later? Absolutely. I think the difference between those top tier wide receivers and even all the way down to wide receiver 18, it's such a gradual drop. Whereas you look at every other position, it's much more top heavy. And for me, it's just the options that you have to pass up on or the value you have to move in order to acquire one of those 3 wide receivers. And everybody's absolutely in love with all 3. And I'm just not willing to pay that price. So for those 3, so Linda had DK, Mitch had Jefferson, and I'm adding AJ Brown to the mix for all 3.
All right, Coach Stan, who's your guy?
This is a fun game we've created here and a fun dream team that's like formulating, because I can see all these guys having these incredible years, and one or more of us will be like, all right, did I really say that on live on the record?
I like all 3, so keep that on the record.
Yeah, it comes with a big asterisk because all of us would like these guys on our team. None of us is saying these are bad picks. Take them when you want them, but I think we all see value where we could slide, maneuver in a draft, take someone else to get a better value and help our teams. For me, I'm going in a little different direction, at least as far as position, so I get to mix it up here. It could be a controversial one, but top where he's going, I have 3 guys I like before him. I'm going to pass on Kyler Murray. I did it in our startup, and I love him. I had 1.03 in the draft there. JB busted my chops a little bit. Maybe I could have gotten more from him, but at the time, the offers just were not coming in. So I got just a little bit of value in swapping picks in some different rounds. But when I watched Arizona last year, and I have some diversity in my portfolio as far as quarterback, but Murray's not so much in there. I had him in a redraft league, so I was kind of rooting for him. But I just watched him get beat up last year. And by the end of the year, like, he wasn't carrying my team like he was at one point. And I do worry about that a little bit with Arizona. 500 team. Are all the pieces there for him? I think he's a very talented young kid, but I am concerned about his size, his health long-term. So for me, if I could trade back, I'm totally on the Justin Herbert train right now. I love what the Chargers organization is doing as far as coaching changes and the direction of that team. I love Deshaun Watson's talent. I do believe he's going to land out of Houston and go somewhere good. And then, of course, you know, the homer of me, I got Dak behind me there. You know, I'm starting to hear some good reports about his health. He still has all those weapons. He was carrying my rosters for 5 weeks last year. So I have 3 guys that are going after Kyler that I would like to take before him.
I don't think that's controversial. And if it is controversial, I'm actually lining up on your side. And typically, Dan and I were always clashing, but I can't even say anything about that one.
Okay, well, how about this to make it
everything tonight?
To make it controversial, what about Trevor Lawrence over Kyler Murray?
I
think a lot of people. I think
I'm
a lot
so
of people
close there right now, to be honest.
I have him in the same tier. I have Lawrence, Kyler,
Burrow,
Russ, Dak, and Lamar. I have Burrow one tier below them.
Okay.
And Mitch, you could give a perfect explanation. Mitch has been spitting truth on Joe Burrow, and I've been absorbing it. I don't know if this is the time or place.
I mean, this is always the time and place.
I pretty much have to now, right? So my issue with Joe Burrow, and I think he is, if you could trade him for his value now, you should do it. Because he's top 10 dynasty quarterback, right? So he did not have any offseason training last year because of COVID. He was injured this past year, so he is not going to have any off-season training again. So his first 2 years, he's going to just be going into the season with no training. And then you'll have Coach Taylor will more than likely be fired after this season, right? Because, I mean, the Bengals probably aren't going to be good. And then so you'll be going into your 3rd season with a whole new offense, more than likely. And then you'll finally start getting your offseason program work in. And I just think that is so hard for a quarterback to do. And he was an older prospect coming in as well. So I could see all these new guys coming in and leapfrogging over him. And I don't know if he's going to give you that much of an advantage this year to actually maintain what his price is.
Interesting.
Josh
I'm not buying that.
It's a good analysis, Mitchell. I
try.
And he plays for the Bungles, so you got to take that in consideration too.
There's so much dysfunction. Wait, really quick, Dan. In our Dynasty Theory intro, your line is there's too much dysfunction in Cleveland. We might have to redo that now since there's not as much dysfunction.
Good point. They've definitely slid down, but there is still dysfunction in Jacksonville and Cincinnati. So
and Houston.
Detroit.
But Detroit's got Jared Goff, so that's just a whole other. That's not even fun.
Damn right it isn't.
So we got our wide receivers out of the way. Coach Dan hit us with our quarterback. I'm going to hit you guys with the running back, and this is the guy that I probably get into the most Twitter debates about. My guy's James Robinson, and I always put this disclaimer out there. He is talented. This isn't a he's not talented thing. This is Mitch is gone. Bye, Mitch. We love you.
You're shook, Mitch, buddy.
Here's my thing about James Robinson. He's really good. He can do it all. It's obvious if you watch the game of football, you know that. Here's my thing. He had, I can't remember the exact percentage. It was either 85 or 89% of snaps last year. The guys behind him were Devine Ozigbo and Dare Gumbawale. I can't believe Jacksonville, with the draft capital that they have and the salary cap room that they have, is going to let that running back room stay as is. I think there are going to be some higher quality. I'm not saying high quality, but higher quality than Ozigbo and Agumbawale behind him, which I think could drop his snap percentage maybe more down to the 70-ish% instead of the high 80s. And I think where he's getting drafted right now, we're kind of almost expecting that 80 to 85% snap share. And I think that's where we're getting a flag. Coach Dan,
if I had a flag, I'd be waving it as well.
And I'm going to let Mitch take most of this because this is Mitch's guy. But my only point I'll slide in is that draft, that salary cap that, where they have some money to spend, that's going to be long gone fixing the O-line, their secondary, their rookie draft. I don't see it going to running back. If they do bring someone else in, I think it would just be to spell James Robinson. But that's my challenge flag. I'll pass the rest to you, Mitchell. That's your boy.
Yeah, let me just go with one thing. Oftentimes when you see running backs drop from high 80s or whatever down to 70, they become more efficient. So like maybe not totally. So I don't see there being this drastic decrease, if he does get less touches and less snaps. So it might affect him a little bit, but I don't think it'll affect him as much as the percentage drop in snaps.
And they got to take pressure off Lawrence too. My bad.
Yeah. No, you're good. So my question just is, I completely agree with what you said, is he probably is going to get a lower snap share. But isn't this already baked into his price to begin with? Because if we actually believe that he's going to get that 80 to 85% snap share, still, he's going to be going in the second round next to Chubb and whoever else is going up there. I mean, he'll be right below Dobbins and Swift if we saw that. But he's actually going like in the fifth. So he's actually dropped down quite a bit to where he's going around guys like Eckler. And if you give me the option, do I want Eckler or do I want James Robinson? I'm going to take James Robinson each time.
This is my red flag. It's a somewhat clean paper towel, but my only thing, and Josh, man, we're all ganging up on you here.
Yeah, it's all good. This is controversial. I said it beforehand.
We're following Bill's lead, but I completely agree with you. 85%, 89%, whatever it was. I don't know if that's sustainable, and I don't know if he's going to have to do that. But the big thing for me, you had Gardner Minshew, who was okay at times. You had Mike Glennon come in, and now you're going to Trevor Lawrence. Are there going to be growing pains? Yes. But you have to believe he's going to have more red zone upside. He had 5 carries last year inside the 5-yard line. That was behind guys like Kalen Ballage and who's the other name I had? Alexander Madison, Malcolm Brown, Peyton Barber, all guys that had more carries inside the 5 than James Robinson. So while his snap share does come down, I have to believe that there's going to be more red zone upside.
And look, it's like I said, and I expected there to be some pushback on this one. I always preface this, especially on Twitter. It's like, this isn't a James Robinson is bad tweet, because that's what people take it as. Is like,
sounded like it.
You think James Robinson is bad, and I'm like, no, I think James Robinson is good.
He's good, but this is why he sucks.
No, never said the word sucks.
I'm teasing you.
But I do think and Coach Dan, you're right. I don't expect them to go out and sign, I don't expect them to use that second first-round pick on Travis Etienne or Najee Harris. I don't expect that. I don't even expect them with their 2-2s to probably take a guy. But they could take a third rounder. They could get, this salary cap is, looks like it's going to be at about 185, 186. There are going to be some cuts just because teams weren't expecting this to happen. And I just think a talent upgrade behind him doesn't render him useless. I just think it may render him a little bit lower than what his current ADP is. And that's all I'm saying. And that's why I'm a little bit lower than consensus, because obviously, as the 4 of you have shown, the consensus is, James Robinson is going to be very, very good. And I don't think he's going to be very, very bad. But I just think maybe a little bit lower than we're all expecting.
Who's a free agent and I think has had a great history with Jacksonville? Leonard Fournette. That just makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Carlos Hyde. He did really well there for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Bring them all back.
Actually, I was thinking a guy like Ingram or something. They could sign somebody like him.
Right.
And that's actually somebody that might hurt his goal line as well. So, if I don't know if that was just an anomaly statistically or if they actually pulled him at goal line.
Oh, they just weren't good enough to get to the red zone was the issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I was gone for a minute, so I don't know if that was covered.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
No. And JB brought it up that, with the addition of Trevor Lawrence, you expect them to be scoring maybe just a little bit more than the Jake Luton, Gardner Minshew, other guy, whoever quarterback that they had last year.
Well, but you also have a quarterback that runs. So those are some things that may end up affecting him in that way as well. So, yeah, I mean, there might be some things that we're not projecting that could affect him.
Mm-hmm. Really quick, just because I have it pulled up, Bill. James Robinson, 5 carries inside the 5. The rest of the team, Dare had 1. That's it.
Okay.
That's all we got.
Disregard.
Minshew, Chenault, Luton, and Chris Thompson all had a red zone carry, but not inside the 5.
Wow.
It's impressive.
And that's why they have the number
prolific.
1 pick this
Yeah,
year.
right. And they tanked well.
That's amazing.
They did it better than the Jets.
They did.
That's right.
All right, let's move on to this next one here. This is from the Pharaoh Fantasy at DTC_Izzy E. Probably everyone who's watching this knows Izzy. Now with Rudolph gone, who you got? Irv Smith, Noah Fant, or Dallas Goedert? So we'll do a quick around the room. We'll start with JB. JB, who do you got out of these 3?
Yesterday it was Dallas Goedert. Today it's still Dallas Goedert. You know, I can see the slight uptick for Irv Smith because Kyle Rudolph is gone, but really, even if you didn't expect this, you had to believe that Irv Smith was going to be the guy in 2022. So I understand if you want to give him a little bump just for a more immediate opportunity. But for me, Dallas Goedert in an offense that we're assuming Irv Smith, holy cow, Zach Ertz is going to be out of Philadelphia, then Dallas Goedert, even in an offense with presumably Jalen Hurts, fewer passing attempts overall, but still look to target the tight end. I like Dallas Goedert, and I just think if we're looking to, that's too big of a bump for me for Irv Smith because of this news.
All right, Coach Dan, who's your guy out of these 3?
Yeah, it's almost for me like 2 different questions here. It's like, who's your guy between Goedert and Fant? Because I don't think Smith is in with those 2 guys. It is very close for me. You know, it depends on my Eagles hate or Noah Fant, but I do lean Goedert. You know, I know it all didn't come together, you know, last year with Hurts, but in playing DFS, I had my share of Hurts lineups and stacking them with Goedert. So I'm watching the games. And Goedert, guys, like, he's starting to look like a wide receiver 1 in Philly. Like, the talent's there. They were trying to get him the ball, and he flashed. Like, he's a stud. But they had no O-line. Hurts was up and down. Like, the Eagles were just a hot mess. If their offensive line could just get marginally better and Hurts could progress a little bit, if he's their guy, who knows who they're going to draft. But I think Goedert could really surprise some people. But I love Fant. They're right next to each other in my rankings. And then Irv Smith, I love his age for a dynasty. And I think with Rudolph gone, that made me feel a little bit better about him because he's a guy like I want to get Goedert and Fant in the draft, one of those 2. If I'm fading the big guys, I can't get them. And then I want to get Irv also later on. So
you're not going to get him later now. I mean, Dallas Goedert came in last in this poll.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, I'm definitely going to go Fant. We've seen it work with Locke already, and so I have a lot of faith in that. And then Dallas Goedert, I love him as well, but I think people are actually going to be drafting him a lot higher than what I'm willing to do. But when I look at Irv Smith, like I kind of said it in our Discord chat, like he was gone from kind of irrelevant to me to where I didn't care previously, and now he's just hyped, but still kind of irrelevant. I want one of the top 8 tight ends. And if I end up leaving a draft with Hayden Hurst or Irv Smith or Robert Tonyan, like I'm pissed because I know other people have a positional advantage over me.
If I could just add too, and watching all 3 of these tight ends like very closely, especially late in the year, you know, trying to find that value tight end to play. Like Irv was really special in the red zone. Like they were starting to get him involved a little bit more there. He had some catches, but he still didn't get a lot of volume. Like even Conklin was coming on. Like even if you want to take Rudolph out and Conklin's back, I don't know, maybe he replaces Rudolph. But like Fant, like Judy was dropping balls at one point, and there was nobody else to throw to. So like I know he was peppering Fant, but like there was nobody else to throw to. Where Goedert, they were trying to throw to him deep. They were trying to find him in the red zone. Like they were trying to really get him. They just
all right. Hold on. Let me get this right. So they were throwing to Noah Fant because they didn't have anybody. And so somehow that's downgrading him from Dallas Goedert, who was getting targeted because the Eagles didn't have anybody. Not entirely sure isn't it kind of the same?
Hear me a little more here. So it's like, JB, help me. What's that stat I like? I know you guys are the analytic guys, but like the air yards. So Goedert was getting all these air yards.
Josh and Bill, do you see the crap I deal with here? And everybody says, JB, you seemed aggravated on last week's episode. Damn right I was.
Oh, it all comes out now.
I mean, Mitch, if Cortland Sutton comes back and Judy gets a little bit better, I don't know how much more of a ceiling fan has. I like Goddard's ceiling, I guess is what I'm saying.
And Bill, before I let you go, we should maybe change the name of this pod to the Dynasty Shrinks, because we seem to we have everyone on the couch here and we're starting to get it all to come out. So, but Bill, who's your guy out of these three?
I mean, I agree with the guys that it's between Fant and Goedert. Like, I think they're pretty close to each other. So I would probably pick the guy I feel is more athletic, and so I would probably lean Fant slightly. But it's a pick 'em kind of almost for me. Irv's been interesting to me. I like him. He's such a young tight end coming into the league, so he has such a great opportunity to grow. But he's just not at that level, and I don't understand why. He's a small tight end, so he's essentially a receiving tight end, and that's pretty much going to be his role. So I don't understand this huge jump because a blocking physical tight end left. Like, they don't play the same roles. That's like saying, because Juju left, James Washington's going to be, they're different types of receivers. It's like you just have different guys who play different roles, and it's just because the title of their position is the same. It doesn't mean that they provide the same, skill set. So I don't think it affects them as much as what this Twitter machine is telling us it does.
I've done like 4 or 5 podcasts with Bill, and I'm fairly certain he's found a way to get James Washington mentioned in every single one.
I don't know why, because I don't have him on one team.
Every single guy. We're talking
him.
About something completely irrelevant. He's like, yeah, what about James Washington though? It's like, Bill, we were talking about like making a turkey for Thanksgiving. What are you talking about, James Washington?
Yeah, but James Washington's a turkey.
JB, I passed the torch, man, because I think I bugged JP for years thinking James Washington's good and JB's a Steelers fan, and then I finally gave up. So I'm happy Bill's picked it up.
Hey, I'm going to do that now for every single episode we're on together.
Wait, can I say though really quick, James Washington's been somebody that I've been looking at later in drafts just because I at the point that he's going now, I'm kind of intrigued.
There's something there, JB. There's something there.
So I'm not going to lie. Really, the only reason I said him is because I'm in a dispersal right now, and I just picked him in the dispersal. So
there you go.
It was like fresh on my mind.
Am I going to see trade offers tomorrow for our listener league team where you're trying to acquire James Washington?
No, you will not. I'm not giving anything of value up for him.
I didn't say give anything of value. I just said, are you going to try? Mitch, who do you got here? I'm assuming it's between Fant and Goedert.
Yeah, it's going to be Fant. Without a doubt, it's Fant. Yep.
And that's that. And I'm kind of with most of you guys here. It's a coin flip. I think I'm going to go with Goedert, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Dan, but not really. I think that there are more weapons in Denver that Fant will have to compete with. I'm assuming health, so Sutton will be back. Judy's there. KJ Hamler can do a little something. You have Fant there. They have, Melvin Gordon. I think the cupboard is a little bit more bare in Philadelphia. They have Goedert. They have Sanders. And then maybe they take Jamar Chase at number 6 in the draft. Maybe they take a quarterback if they don't believe in Jalen Hurts. We don't know what Philly is going to do with that pick. So that's why I'm going with Goedert. And since I'm in the Philly area, I see all the Eagles games. And Dan is right that, once it was just kind of him and, Alshon Jeffrey limping around the field or whatever he was pretending to do. It was kind of like, let's get it to Goedert as much as we possibly can. and and he can do a lot of things on the field. So, yeah, that's my guy. But I mean, honestly, flip a coin. I don't think you can go wrong either way. But gun to my head, I'm going with Goedert.
And despite the coaching change, it still ultimately is a product of the Doug Peterson tree, right? It goes Sirianni, Frank Reich, Doug Peterson. It's just full circle. So I don't expect too much to change from an offensive perspective. Now, the curveball is, what do they do with Jalen Hurts, and what impact does that have? But overall, I still think the tight ends get used there, and hoping that Zach Ertz gets moved one way or another, not just for Dallas Goedert's sake, but for Zach Ertz's dynasty life. Like, inject him with some type of life here, please.
Hey,
I
and
still
if
want
Philly,
a tangent right now.
What's that?
I still want a tangent right now.
Go for
And
it.
just real quick, what do you guys do with Jalen Hurts?
So really quick, his value's been Mitch and I took part in 2 startups. In one, he went like quarterback 9 or 10. Then the next one, it was like quarterback 19 or 20. Like, it was just absurd. If I have him, I'm trying to find that one person in the league that just is head over heels for Jalen Hurts. And if I can maximize that value and get like quarterback 12, 13, even 14 value in return, I'm doing it. I've tried to get 109 straight up in a super flex league, and I have been able to.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, like you're kind of betting on what the Eagles are going to do, right? Like, if you have any faith that the Eagles can win 8 games, you should want Jalen Hurts on your team, because he is going to be a top 10 scoring quarterback. My biggest worry is I don't think the Eagles are going to be remotely close to being good next year. And so then it's kind of a bet on, are they going to be willing to keep playing Jalen Hurts if they're 2-6 and losing, or are they going to put in somebody, whoever else they have behind him? Are they just going to bench him at that point? Because they have like a 2nd round draft capital in him, and that's it. And so for me, I'm out just based on the Eagles franchise itself, and not so much on Jalen Hurts.
Do you think they draft a quarterback, Mitch? Because there's so much of that going on right now.
It's so hard. I think they should. I mean, why not? If your franchise is in that big of a hole and you have the one shot to get a franchise quarterback, whichever the big 4 it is this year, I would do it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I feel like Hurts may be the most polarizing player in Dynasty right now. I mean, there are the people who are like, let him go. He's going to run and get you a bunch of points. He's going to stick around. And then there's the other people who are like, he's not going to make it to May 1st because they're going to draft someone at 6. So, I mean, the Eagles have, a ton of options at 6 because they have a ton of needs. So
exactly.
They could definitely take a quarterback if one falls, if they like Justin Fields or maybe Zach Wilson for some unknown reason falls to 6. They could go Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith. I mean, heck, they could double up it and take Kyle Pitts at 6. Who knows? Like, they could literally do anything. So
can I tangent off of Bill's tangent really quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
First of all, if they take Kyle Pitts, I'm going to throw my computer through a wall, because now not only is Kyle Pitts, you have to believe that's going to hurt him a little bit, especially in the short term. But our man Dallas Goedert, who we just talked about for 20 minutes. But if they take Jamar Chase, how much of that Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's in the back of everybody's mind that maybe we drop Jamar Chase overall and his perceived value changes? Do you think that takes place at all, that we see that at all?
I don't know. I would love if they took Jamar Chase. And I almost feel bad for Jalen Hurts. And I say almost because he plays for the Eagles, so I have barely any sympathy ever for the Eagles, and I hope they stay terrible. But when you watch their games last year, I mean, the kid balled out. He played hard. And where I feel bad is the situation he's thrown into. Because most good coaching staffs, when they know they have a young quarterback that you don't want to just crush his confidence and you want to build around him, like, run the ball once in a while. You've got Miles Sanders in the backfield. Take some pressure off the kid. Run some screens. Do some more things with Miles. When they did utilize Miles, boy, that offense was going. And I saw it versus my Cowboys. First half, it was like the tale of two different games. He was horrible in the second half. Well, I should say he was horrible. I should say the Philadelphia offense was horrible. But you saw how deflated that team was when they took him out of the game because they know he gave them at least a chance. And so maybe that dysfunction's a little bit gone. Maybe I'm not confident in it. Like Mitch said, I don't have a lot of faith in this team. But right now in a draft, I am worried that they take a Trey Lance or some other quarterback. We've heard so many of those rumors where I'd be very reluctant to take him now. If they don't take a quarterback, I'm a little more likely to take Hurts and then just kind of watching their offseason moves to see could they fix that offense. They need O-line help.
I think Lance is the one QB they won't take, just because I think the citizens of Philadelphia would burn the stadium down if they took another North Dakota State quarterback.
That's a good point.
So I think that's the one guy they don't take. But besides that, Coach Dan, I think you're right, man. They could go a bunch of different ways. I mean, they could even go like Rashawn Slater at 6, an offensive tackle, because, I mean, whatever they were trying to do at left tackle last year just wasn't it. It was, Dillard, who was the first round pick, that got hurt. I mean, Jordan Mailata played well, but, I mean, he's kind of more of a rotational guy, a guy you just want as your 6th offensive lineman. So they might be one of the more interesting teams as we go and watch the draft here. But
it'll just be interesting to see who takes a quarterback before them. I mean, it's going to be so telling. I can't wait. It's exciting to think about who may or may not take a quarterback.
Yeah, or who leapfrogs them, or can they leverage that 6th overall? Hey, we're taking a quarterback. We're taking a quarterback, just so somebody trades up. Oh, we were never taking a quarterback. We got you.
And I think the cool part about that, JB, is that I think you're going to find that out before the draft, because if they want to get into, maybe the Jets stay with Darnold and they trade out of 2 to get more assets and not take a Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, they're going to have to do that deal like a few days before the draft, because, people are talking about the Panthers at 8 moving up, maybe even possibly Denver at 9 trying to get up to get one of these guys. And then right after them is the Dolphins, and everybody in the league knows they're trying to trade out because they are either going to trade for Deshaun or they're going to have Tua. So they're not in the quarterback market. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And I think some of those trades are going to get done before the draft, because no one is going to want to play chicken until the day of the draft.
There's a comment in the chat from Short Logic. Eagles should sign Alex Smith for Hurts if he ends up as an option. Really quick, just because Alex Smith was brought up, and then he's a good mentor, still could push him. Alex Smith being a mentor for a young quarterback for his old college coach. What about Alex Smith as a backup in Jacksonville? No fantasy value whatsoever. Yeah, just something that popped in my head.
Yeah, that's actually that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, and I think, a lot of these teams that maybe are in this top 10 that may take one of these quarterbacks, depending on where, Alex Smith might be a good guy to have, to kind of like what McCown used to do with various teams. He would just go there. He was on the Jets.
With insert team here.
Yeah, Jets, Eagles are the last 2 I could think of off the top of my head. But he would go there, and he was never going to be the guy, but he was there to teach the young kid how to play the game, how to be a professional. Yeah, JB, I mean, that's a really good point. I think he'd go to a lot of different places and just help a young quarterback get acclimated to the NFL, especially with kind of the weird draft process that a lot of these guys are going to go through, where they're not, no combine, obviously that came and went that time period. And, it's going to be a lot of Zoom calls, and, I don't think a lot of prospects are going to be going to actual stadiums. So Alex Smith might really be kind of the first taste of the NFL that a young quarterback might get. And I mean, I think it's a good one. So.
Yeah, I think in Dynasty, if we have Jalen Hurts, or if we draft one of these young rookie quarterbacks, we want an Alex Smith or an Andy Dalton or a Ryan Fitzpatrick mentoring them. And my last thought on that quarterback draft, like JB said, hey, who's going to hop over there? But I think the Jets or the Falcons, I think they're crazy if they pass on my boy Zach Wilson. So, right, Mitch?
Yeah. Good for them. Hopefully he goes to the Jets and doesn't ruin anybody else's career. That'd be good.
Mitch, I'm listening to Peter King today. He's a Utah boy too. For that alone, I'm surprised you don't like him. I know he went to BYU, but he was like a Utah high school quarterback, and that's your neck of the woods, man.
I'm almost positive he didn't go to high school in Utah.
There's some sort of Utah connection. I know his dad is Utah alumni.
That could be it. Yeah,
and then he's got like relatives that went to Utah. I think everyone wanted him to go to Utah, but then
Zach Wilson attended Corner Canyon High School in Draper, Utah.
Yeah, it's a new school.
See, Mitch
look at what you learned, man.
He's just Mitch is being a hater, guys.
Man, we could do a whole show on the whole BYU and the competitive advantage they had, but we won't do it right now.
So I know that later on in the offseason, we're getting these guys back to do the BYU competitive advantage episode of the timeline.
Steve Young's mentoring Zach Wilson right now. Speaking of mentor quarterbacks, but I digress.
Nah, I love it. I love the little insights, man. This could you Coach Dan could get Zach Wilson maybe all the way up to 1. Who knows?
I'm not skipping Trevor Lawrence, man. I'm staying on that train. But after Lawrence, Wilson's my boy.
That was hard to say with a straight face. But we got one more from Dinah Nostradamus at Dinah Nostradamus. Dynasty tip. In a startup draft, value/ranked players where you believe they will be ranked next season at minimum. The biggest mistake I always see is people drafting players that are similarly priced right now, but one is ascending and the other is descending. So, what is that?
Nothing.
Oh, declining. Sorry, reading fast and not really looking at words. All right, so we'll go around the room. Mitch, you can start. What's one startup tip that you would give to the people listening?
So one thing that I really like to do is, and it works a lot better May through August, but it's trade. So 2021 season right now, trade your 2022 first for a first round pick this year. So say Rashad Bateman is still there in the 8th round. I don't care that you're trading, the 22 second or first for that 8th rounder. You're trading it for Bateman. And I think Bateman is going to be 109 through 112 in most drafts right now. I would rather just have that player right now and then just not worry about it for next year because I know I already have that value on my team.
All right, Bill.
Yeah, this one. Okay, I think I get caught in this as much as probably anybody. So maybe this is just me telling myself what to do. But when I'm in a startup, I get caught. Like when you get into those middling rounds and towards the back, I start grabbing these veterans that I know I can get points from. And it just drives me crazy because I know what I'm going to get out of them. And so like the point accumulations should be early in the draft. And then like when you hit the middle and back or lower rounds, it's all upside. And I fall into the rut of not doing that. So I just wrote upside 4 times on my sheet for this. And I should probably do that and put a sticky note on my monitor just to remind me when I am in startups, because like last year I'm grabbing like Golden Tate. Like, why am I grabbing Golden Tate? Like I know what he's going to get me. And you can get those players anytime if you really need to. So just go for the home run once you hit like the middle rounds. So that's mine.
Cool. Coach Dan?
Yeah, that was a great one there. And I think
Thanks, Dan.
I'm seeing all those Golden Tates. There's like 50 of them on our draft board right now. And I'm probably shortchanging that a little bit. So definitely find that young draft capital. But, you're going into startup. Maybe you're not as that confident. You're in with a bunch of ringers like you guys. Start studying. Go on Twitter. If you can't find it yourself, ask somebody. Review some drafts that have already happened. All right. You got nutcases like John and Mitch who started drafting like it was like week 17 of the regular season. It wasn't even like, technically close to the new calendar year, but that was helpful. Those guys posted some drafts. I got to see some market value. Check out some websites with dynasty rankings, good sources only, because not everyone wants to cover everything. Not everyone really understands dynasty value, but just seeing where guys are going and being drafted, could kind of help you make sure you're not overdrafting and then help adjust your rankings. My rankings, I feel, are so tight now from 18 rounds drafting with some guys that are legit drafters. You get a really good gauge for the market value.
All right. We've got some good ones. JB, what's yours?
JB told me before this show that this is a really good one. So I'm expecting excellence right here.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Mitch and I were talking about it earlier, and I like this question. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, all right, what about this? What about this? And then something just came to me. So Dan just mentioned market values, and we always talk about it. We talk about it in Dynasty Theory. You guys talk about it. Everybody talks about market values. But the sub-market values are so much more important. So when you're in your specific league and you're in a startup and you're 2 rounds in, and Josh, you and I were just DMing about this last week, 2 weeks ago, about quarterback runs.
Yep.
If your league says, based on the way they're drafting, this is how we value quarterbacks, and you're in a super flex league, you can throw market value, general market values out the window. Mitch and I were in a 14-team super flex league. We're co-managing together. We ended up, was it the 3rd round or 2nd round? We took Trey Lance ahead of players. If you would post a poll on Twitter and I saw the options, I'm not picking Lance. But the league dictated that it was not a typical league, and the market values were certainly a little bit different within this particular sub-market, which is the league. So I think it's very important that while, yes, there's an overall market and general consensus, your league is going to tell you a lot, especially in the first few rounds of a super flex startup, especially with how they value quarterbacks. So I think that's very important to really pay attention to and not just go off of the general, values that you see floating around on Twitter or general rankings.
And you guys gave 4 doctorate level tips. I'm gonna take it a little bit to high school, and it's kind of what JB was talking about. But be fluid in your draft. I hear a lot of people who are like, all right, so in the first round I'm going to take a quarterback, and then in the second round I'm going to grab my RB1, and then I'm not taking a wide receiver until round 8. They're everywhere I can get them. Blah blah blah. But like JB was saying, and this happened in our listener league draft, the first 8 picks were quarterback. And Bill and I were talking, and we were like, oh, it'd be nice to grab a nice young quarterback, because we were 111. It'd be nice to grab a nice young quarterback. I think probably Christian McCaffrey is going to be sprinkled in there, Saquon. No, it didn't work like that. And then we were like, okay, well, that's not going to happen for us. Cool. What are we going to do now? All right, we'll just take Jonathan Taylor at 111. And it's, and a lot of people, if you kind of like JB said, if you put a poll, where do you think Jonathan Taylor is going to go? People are going to 103, 104, 105, very few people would probably say 111, 112, 201. So, like JB was saying, you have to see what your draft is doing and see what's going on, because, Bill and I had also talked about, probably getting wide receiver a little bit later, but we're kind of looking around, and CeeDee Lamb is still just hanging out. It's like, hey, round 4, he's still round 5. We're like, hey, people just keep sleeping on CeeDee Lamb. Should we take him? Yeah, it wasn't part of the plan. We were going to wait on wide receiver, but you have to be fluid, because like JB said, your league is going to determine what the value of players and positions are. It's not what you think is going to happen, because when you're with 11, 13, 15 other people, they all have their ideas about where players should go and how the draft will look. So just be fluid, get your guy if you need to. It like JB said, we took Trey Lance way earlier than everyone would tell us to. Cool, who cares? If that's your guy and that's the guy you think is going to end up being the biggest impact on your team, the way your roster is constructed at that time, go get him. Because guess what? If Trey Lance ends up being the QB1 or the QB2 out of this draft class, no one is going to no one's going to say, well, you still took him 2 rounds too early. They're going to be like, you had the foresight to kind of see where this was going, and you got there before everyone else. It was kind of the same thing. Antonio Gibson last year, there were people who were like, he only had like 33 touches at Memphis. Like, I don't believe in it. And there were other people that were like, yeah, but he's explosive on the field. And by the way, I was in the first category. I was not an Antonio Gibson believer. So this is personal experience here. And, you know, the people who were behind him were like, yeah, but look at him. He's explosive. He can catch the ball. Like, his skill set translates well into an NFL setting. And actually, Trey Lance, I think, has a lot of the same quarterback skill set that translates well into the NFL setting. He may need a year or two to, you know, grow up a little. He's really young, but I think he has the talent to be really, really good in the league. So, yeah, I mean, these guys are doctors. I'm just in high school, but yeah, just stay fluid and just, you know, don't let your ideas dictate what you're going to do. Kind of let the draft show you where to go and where to find that value.
And if Trey Lance does do well, Mitch and I will say, oh yeah, we saw this coming. We'll ignore the fact that 18 of the first 25 picks were quarterbacks. We'll leave. Yeah. We took Trey Lance in the second, but he was quarterback 19.
Listen, the history is written by the victors, and if you guys win that, you can write whatever history you want at the end of it. So
That's
there we go.
Oh man, so guys, I mean, we're at the end. I'm a little sad because I feel like we could probably go another hour if we really wanted to, but that's what we got on the show sheet for this week. So I want to thank all three of you personally. I'm going to give all three of you guys a chance to tell people whatever you want to tell them, but I appreciate all you guys getting on. It's good to have the entire crew. I mean, like I said earlier, one of my favorite podcasts. I don't miss it because if I do, I feel like I'm probably going to miss learning something. So I appreciate you guys. And you guys can go in any order. Just tell people where they can find you, what you're up to, and what you're doing.
I'll start. You can find me on Twitter at the Bauer Club. Yeah. Give me 10 minutes here. Let me get my spiel in. No, find me on Twitter at the Bauer Club, and then make sure you're following the show at Dynasty Theory FF. We're live every Tuesday night, 9 p.m., with the exception of last night. Took a mental health day, if you will. But I had to make sure that I could jump on with you guys. Yeah, absolutely. I was having a day yesterday, if I'm going to be honest. But yeah, I mean, the guys, this is so much fun. Anytime we have a chance to catch up with Bill and Josh, I mean, I have an absolute blast. I've been looking forward to this since we first talked about it.
I'll save that beautiful guy up top with the fancy hair for last. But man, I always appreciate a follow on Twitter, FF Coach Dan. Listen to us on Dynasty Theory. And other than that, guys, always a pleasure being on Fantasy Timeline. Bill, Josh, you guys are awesome. Had a great time tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for, having us on. I'm at DynoMC on Twitter. If you want to see like smart ass comments about Dynasty Twitter itself nonstop, that's all I do. Like if you're there for like any analysis or anything, that's not for me. That's for these guys. But if you want to see me mock like running back age metrics and stuff, that's what I'm there for.
Mitch will text me early in the morning and be like, hey, should I throw out a troll tweet? I'm like, dude, like I didn't even have you're 2 hours behind me. I didn't finish my first cup of coffee yet, and you're trying to start fights on Twitter. Sure, if you want to, man.
I love it. Well, guys, I'm just gonna echo everything that's been said. I love chatting with you guys. It's always a good time, and really appreciate it when we do get the chance to, because I know we're all busy. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and I always lurk in the background when Mitch starts something, and I'm just there for the replies. So I usually don't get involved, or I'll usually just hit that heart and be like, yeah, I like this, because I want to make sure that I keep in tune with everything that's going back and forth. But again, man, thank you all again. It's so awesome having you guys on. You're not only one of my favorite podcasts, but you're some of my favorite guests to have on. And I want to thank everyone who was in the chat as well. Lindsay, Short Logic, Steve Dennis, People were flowing in and out. Thank you for being in the chat. It always makes it more fun. If you are watching this on YouTube and for some reason you haven't subscribed and hit that bell, do that. It would be appreciated. Plus, you get to see what we're doing. So that's always a fun thing. If you're doing the podcast thing, appreciate that too. We're an hour and 15 minutes into this, and you could literally be doing anything else, but you decide to listen to 4 very smart individuals and me talk. So appreciate that. And just remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you can on that as well. Just helps us get out there and get a couple more eyes taking a look at us. So on that note, Bill, we are out of here.
Late.